Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. If you love digging deep into history and literature, you are in the perfect place today. We're going to go step by step through a genuinely fascinating and honestly pretty surprising piece of ancient Hebrew literary art. It's called the Song of Songs, or you might have heard it called the Song of Solomon. This is a text that has absolutely captivated readers, scholars, and theologians for literally thousands of years.
But here's the thing, and this is exactly what scholars have been debating for centuries. Why on earth is an ancient, incredibly passionate love poem sitting right smack in the middle of the Bible? I mean, think about it. It doesn't even explicitly mention God. In a collection of books that's almost entirely focused on law, history, prophecy, and theology, suddenly, bam, we get this incredibly vivid, emotional dialogue all about human romance. It feels kind of out of left field, right? Well, today we're going to answer that exact question. We'll take a journey from just a surface-level reading of this earthly romance straight down into the deep historical theology hiding right underneath the text.
So, part one, what actually is this book? Let's get our bearings.
Well, the name itself, Song of Songs, is super fascinating. You see, in ancient Hebrew phrasing, when you repeat a word like that, it's actually their way of expressing the absolute maximum of something. It's kind of like how King of Kings means the ultimate highest king. So Song of Songs literally translates to the greatest of all songs or the supreme song. I really want you to let that sink in for a second. The ancient readers and compilers who put this text together didn't just see it as a nice piece of poetry. To them, it was the absolute pinnacle of musical and poetic achievement. Out of all the songs ever written, this one was the masterpiece.
So, where exactly did this masterpiece come from? As a foundational piece of ancient Hebrew literary art preserved right within the biblical canon, tradition heavily associates it with King Solomon. And Solomon was historically famous not just for his wisdom, but also for being a really prolific songwriter. Having that historical anchor is absolutely crucial for us because it helps us understand the era and just how much cultural weight this text carried. We're not talking about some casual folk song here. It was royal, it was highly esteemed, and it was meticulously preserved.
All right, moving into part two, poetry of love and longing.
Now, to really understand any drama, you got to know the players, right? At the very center of this poetic story, we've got King Solomon himself, a central female figure who's known as the Shulamite woman, and, depending on how you interpret the text's structure, a young shepherd fiancé. Bringing these three together creates this really dynamic, sometimes a little tense, and incredibly emotional narrative framework. Grounding ourselves in this specific cast of characters is going to help us really appreciate all that passionate dialogue before we start diving into the hidden symbolic meanings. Because, wow, the surface-level reading of this text is just visceral. It uses this highly poetic, wildly vivid language to express some serious, deep love. It pulls heavily from the beauty of nature. I'm talking striking metaphors here, like comparing a lover's eyes to doves, or describing someone as a vibrant, blossoming garden. It captures the shifting of the seasons, and this intense, almost overwhelming physical and emotional yearning between two people who are just entirely wrapped up in each other. It's basically a celebration of human affection in its rawest, most beautiful form. It's a great reminder that romantic love and human connection are profound experiences all on their own, definitely worthy of being called the greatest of all songs.
Which brings us to part three, allegorical and mystical interpretation.
Okay, so here's where it gets really deep. This exact same love story is actually viewed through two completely different divine lenses. And honestly, that's precisely how it's managed to survive and thrive in theological circles for millennia. On one hand, in the traditional Old Testament interpretation, all this profound, unyielding love we just talked about represents God's steadfast covenant with the people of Israel. On the other hand, fast forward to the New Testament tradition, and it's interpreted as this beautiful, mystical representation of Christ's deep love and ultimate sacrifice for the church, which is often called his bride. So the big takeaway here is that this beautifully crafted poem acts as a massive theological bridge. It takes the most intense human emotion we can possibly understand, romantic love, and uses it to try and explain the completely incomprehensible, infinite love of the divine. Pretty amazing, right?
And finally, part four, the unquenchable power of love.
Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he would be utterly despised. That's from chapter 8, verse 7. And guys, this is essentially the thesis statement for the entire masterpiece. Whether you are reading this as a passionate human love story or as a massive divine allegory, the core message is exactly the same. True love is an unstoppable force of nature. It literally cannot be drowned out by hardship. And, crucially, It cannot be bought. It is inherently, infinitely more valuable than any material possession in existence.
So that leaves us with one final, really thought-provoking question to chew on. If a person offered literally all their earthly wealth for love, would it be enough? Well, according to the greatest of all songs, the answer is a massive, resounding no. Love, whether it's the human kind or the divine kind, is just infinite in its value. I really hope this explainer has helped you see the brilliant structure and the profound, hidden depths of the Song of Songs. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. And hey, keep seeking out the deeper meanings in the world around you.